you so much. How I believe you can hear me.
Loud and clear, sir.
Great. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is for you. It's a great pleasure to be part of the Academy today. Sincere appreciation to Mission Enablers Africa, Pastor Nee and the entire team, Brother Tommy, Sister Tokwe, all our friends in Mission Enablers. I'm sorry if I don't mention all the names. It's a big pleasure to be here, and I do not take it for granted. I am proud to be associated with this strategic initiative to mobilize, to resource the church and prospective and even serving missionaries. It's a great one, and I do not take it for granted. Thank you so very much. I'm not sure I will speak fast like Sister Tokwe. So just I hope you allow me go at my pace.
Absolutely, sir. I mean, you have more time than me, so it's fine.
Thank you so very much.
Yes,
I want to believe, let me see. I'm wondering if I can share my screen. It's telling me it's been disabled. I wouldn't know. Oh, Bro Tommy, do you want to share it from your hand? Whichever is fine. Again, I want to welcome participants.
You can share your screen, sir.
Fantastic.
Yes, sir, you've been permitted.
Great. Let me see. Yes. Okay. Can you see this, please?
Yes, sir.
Great.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Again, it's a joy to be part of this strategic initiative today. I mean, this is not flattery, but just today, I was sharing with some colleagues and I said something like this is happening and we just need to keep encouraging this initiative because we don't have time on our hand. The harvest, keeps ripening and getting spoiled. And what you'll be hearing tonight, I mean, as much as possible, they are from practical personal experiences. By the grace of God, I have the undeserved privilege to have been raised by missionary parents, and I grew up on the mission field. And as much as I thought I was going to run away from missions, the Lord kept pulling me back. So, I mean, I'm used to people saying, oh, your face looks young and how come you've gathered this much experience and all of that. But then our sharing and our conversations today will be more from deep, practical, personal experiences. And I think you'll probably find that helpful. So let's get started with the conversation. What we'll be looking at today is the role of research in mission mobilization. I know the focus of this academy, the cross of it centers around mobilizing the church effectively. And I think the Lord has given the organizers great wisdom in bringing different parts and components into this training. And I was particularly excited to see research as part of what our leaders in MEA would want us to consider, because that's quite rare. I could bet that probably significant percentage of those of you on the call today have probably not had deep encounters with research in mission. Maybe you are even wondering, I mean, this is not academics. Okay, now we have somebody with a PhD, maybe that's why. No, it's beyond that. And I believe God that we're going to have a great time. And let's just say a word of prayer again together. We can never have too much of that. Lord Jesus, we believe you have a purpose and an agenda and a passion to pass to us, even through our gathering today. As my brother and sisters have prayed before now, I'm just asking that today's sharing will not just be to excite the participant. Let it not just be an intellectual exercise. Let it be a transfusion of your body into our heart. This we pray with thanksgiving. In Jesus' name. Amen. All right. I believe you are still with me and you can hear me loud and clear.
Loud and clear, sir. Yes.
Great.
Yes.
All right. So we want to look at the role of research in mission mobilization. And I put it here that missions is, this is what we'll be looking at. Let me jump over this. Okay. The Great Commission is indeed a composite endeavor, that pulls different parts together to make a whole, and which delivers on the mandate. Now, you need to understand that mission is beyond people are perishing. Let's go there. Even the master that gives us this mandate, he helps us to come along with a lot of intelligence. I will get there shortly. I'm just trying to, introduce what we'll be doing today. So a number of things, comes with the mandate. And by the time we will bring all of this perspective into our obedience, it helps us to deliver appropriately. Now, more often than not, I think in my own observation, in my own learning, in my own experience, we do well in so many. Mobilization, I don't think we're doing too bad. Maybe the likes of Pastor Ney, Reverend Kachala, they probably will not agree with me to the fullest. But I think there are some commendable efforts in mobilization. I think there are some commendable efforts in training. But as far as research is concerned, getting intelligence that is spirit-led, I think that's an area that we've not given much attention to. And without wanting to just unnecessarily hype missions research, I think not giving attention to this very sensitive part is costing us too much. And you will discover that shortly. Let me share this encounter with you. And it's something I like sharing when I have the opportunity to talk about missions research. So it happened that a missions researcher was invited to a church, just like I'm also sharing with you today. And I was trying to talk about missions research. Now, I need to prepare your mind, and you also need to prepare your mind. This session tonight is not about exciting you. It is beyond that. We are here for serious business. So it may not sound so sweet as you might hear somebody talking about missions and things like that. So it happened that this missions researcher shared in the church. Maybe it was a bit boring, I don't know. But the church leader just pulled him aside and said, "Brother, would you just go ahead and share the gospel? You're talking about research, just tell us to go share the gospel." And I love the response of the missions researcher. He said, "Oh, I would love to do that. If only you will tell me the language the people that we are to reach speak. If only you will tell me the coordinates where I may find them. If only you will tell me if they have the scripture in their mother tongue. If only you will tell me how many churches probably or how many missionaries may be needed to reach these people. If only you will tell me, how do we even get to this place? What best engagement practice do we use?" You will agree with me that it's not everywhere you can just dress up with your collar and with your suit and all of that and say you are going for missions. You probably may not return alive. So and when the missions researcher said that, the eye of the church leader was open. So, "Oh, really? I just thought that when we talk about missions, I saw somebody sharing just in the chat, oh, he would love to go for missions after his MSc. Fantastic. I was excited to see that. But then something must happen. How do you even know where God is calling you to? How do you even have an understanding of where God is leading you to? How do you even get prepared? When I was starting my mission sojourn, as a very young undergrad, some of the people around me, I showed interest, volunteer service. They would just post me. In fact, it happened that many of the fields where I was posted, the people posting me had not been there. So when I'm asking question, please, what's this place like? I say, just go. The Spirit of the Lord will go with you. It may sound very spiritual, but it's just a foolish thing to do. You're sending me to a field as a young lad. Thank God for the passion. I believe the Lord gave me this heightened passion. But then when I asked the people sending me to the field, please, what should I expect? Who are these people? And they tell me, oh, we've not even been there, but we have people who will receive you. When you get there, you ask all of those questions. That's as good as even failing before arriving. And that's what we'll be looking at in our conversation today. Okay, so let's move on. Now, why? Let's engage the why. Now, if you look at the business world, marketing, which I want to assume maybe some of us on the call are probably into sports, global economy, all of these generally depend on data, before key decisions are taken and executed. In Nigeria, we have a ministry of budget and planning or something like that. In many countries, they have something similar. They work with data, forecast, in 20 this, in 20 that, this will happen, there will be recession. And so economists, if you're looking at the economic side of it, they keep finding ways to plan, okay, set up this, set up that. But why is it that when it comes to the church or missions endeavor, we don't seem to have much of that? It will interest you to know that those of you who have interest in sports, the forecasting, Champions League, I believe, is getting into semi-finals. People are looking at past record. Okay, when this team played this team in 1960 this, in 1970 that, okay, they had this, they had that, and things like that. So analysts can forecast, and plan. And those who are into the tactics, into the technicalities, if you are a coach or a team manager, you begin to think more. My relationship, I have some coaches around. They get to watch clips of their opponents, okay, how they played, their style, and say, okay, so who do I need to bring in? Where do I need to strengthen? Is it the midfield? Is it the striking force? And things like that. Now, Jesus made a very profound statement. He said, the children of the world, they're what? They are wise. But why don't we do that? Why do we engage fields and we don't even have anything? We don't have any information. We want to engage a field, we want to engage a people. We absolutely have no information about them. At times, we because of, permit me to say this, because of our laziness, indolence, we just hide under, we just be going, the Spirit will lead you, the Spirit. Oh, may I tell you, brothers and sisters, the Spirit of God is not a lazy spirit. The Spirit of God does not subscribe to mediocrity. You will see that even as we progress, in our discussion. So, by the way, let's attempt to define what we mean by research in mission. Now, by research, we mean series. I want you to note that series. So it's not a one-off thing. It's series of spirit-led fact-finding activity. You see, the defining thing there is the Spirit. By research, we mean series of spirit-led fact-finding activities. Now, what do we aim to achieve? We discover, we verify existing information or data about a people group or territory. to help us make well-informed and strategic decisions for gospel engagement. Wow. I hope that jumps out at you. You know, maybe you just coming across this. So in missions research, it's a series. So it doesn't just happen once and for all. We keep doing this under the influence of the Spirit. And what are we finding out? We're discovering, we're verifying existing information, data about a people group, a territory, about an issue, about a development around a people group that we're intending to engage, so that we can do that effectively. And now we'll be connecting this to mobilization, because that's the context of our discussion and our learning, especially in this forum. Okay, let's look at another definition. So research for completing the Great Commission is a way of life. In other words, I think I saw somebody shared a quote from Reverend Kachala last week, and I was saying that I'm paraphrasing now. So the fellow was writing in the chat room that I think mobilization is not what the church does, is what the church is. I think something like that. Forgive me if I don't put it the way Reverend Kachala put it, but I think it's something like, same is research. It's not something we just do. Rather, it's a way of life. It's something we call, and I will explain that even as we move on and how this, comes in. Okay, it involves the daily discipline of comparing people's needs with God's resources. That's another way to look at it. It involves the daily discipline of looking at gospel needs. And now when we talk about gospel needs, we're talking of holistic needs. I mean, if I use mission enablers as a case study, mission enablers don't just share the gospel, they also meet needs, care for people. I'm aware of places where they try to provide relief, catalyze development, God-centered transformation, and things like that. Now, what helps us to achieve those kind of things is research. Okay, Sister Temi, am I still very audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, you are.
Fantastic. Now,
Yes, sir.
it requires understanding human situations with spiritual discernment. I hope these points are jumping at us, because I mean, it's for us to look at research from a very broad perspective. So it's not just about, okay, how many people are in this village? How many are Christians? How many are Muslims? No, it's beyond that. We're trying to understand the human situations, but not just from the physical perspective, not just from sociological, anthropological perspective, but we're saying with spiritual discernment. Okay, and we'll get there shortly again. It prompts us to continually shape and adjust our ministry in light of new information. That's what Roy Wingard says to us. And you see that last sentence makes a lot of impression on me. It confirms that many of our ministries today are not serving relevantly. Otherwise, if we are serving relevantly, we wouldn't be the way we are. Look at it again. He said it prompts us to continually shape and adjust our ministry in light of new information. Now, the question is, what new information do we have? What do we know about the people we are serving? What intelligence, spiritually discerned, do we have about the people we want to reach? We're talking about mobilizing the church. What information do we even have about the church? All right, so let's progress. Now let's look at the connection between research and mobilization. What we'll be doing today, because of the time we have, is just to scratch the surfaces of missions research. I want to believe God will give us opportunities in the future to really go into the nitty-gritty, dissect all the part of research and things like that. So I just have 1 hour to do this, and please just bear with me. I believe God is going to help us. Now, let's look at the connection of research and mobilization. I don't want to talk much on mobilization because that has been sufficiently addressed, in previous discussions. So now, how do we determine areas of gospel needs? You are a mobilizer. You want to share about the needs among the nations, I believe. But how do you get to know? How do you get to know that some people are unreached? How do you get to know that some people are unengaged? How do you get to know that there is need for a church planting, initiative in X place, in Y place, and all of that? It's research that makes us do that. And shortly again, like I said, because we still have some things we'll be looking ahead to, we're going to see that. You will discover, those of us in Southwest Nigeria, you need to forgive me, or in South Nigeria. And, when I come to Lagos, and for some of us who are outside the country, just try and relate, and I see maybe 3 churches in a building, I get a bit disturbed. How do these churches come to occupy this? What kind of information? Who are they trying to reach? Ministry is not done in a vacuum. And I want to believe now when we talk about ministry in our own context of discussion, we want to believe it's about reaching the unreached. So if we cite a ministry in a place, what are we hoping to achieve? What is the intention? So this is where research comes in to help our mobilization effort. Now, we also get to know how close or far are we from completing the task. With huge sense of respect, one of the fathers in the land, whom I have so much respect for, was sharing, I think sometime last year, and said, "Oh, we're taking over Nigeria, we're taking over Africa, and things like that. We've built so large number of churches. We plan to have so numbers." I'm just trying to not divulge all the information, so that I don't offend anyone. Fantastic testimony. But then, for someone like me, who is familiar with the situation, who has the information, by the grace of God, I've been to all the 36 states in Nigeria. I've been to, by the grace of God, a number of countries within our continent and other places where God has given us opportunity. I work closely with global research bodies like Joshua Project, Finishing the Task, Operation World, and all of those things. We work together to channel. And I'm wondering, where is that statement coming from? Because here alone in Nigeria, I know a state in Northeast Nigeria, that state has 17 local governments, and 10 out of the 17 local governments in that state don't have a church present, not one church. Wow. So at times when we share our testimonies, it's good to celebrate what God is doing, but what helps us to be able to know whether we are close or we are far is missions research, and that can now help us to effectively mobilize. And you will see that again by the time we begin to go into the scriptures to look at biblical basis and things. So let me keep that till we get there. What do we need to do to finish the task? It's research that helps us to know that, and mobilization takes it over. Many people who are so burdened, who are so concerned, unreached people are still there. We've been talking about this since 16, whatever, 17. What exactly do we need to do? And the reason is this: the way you reach people group X is different from the way you reach people group Y. In Nigeria, for example, the way you will reach people in the South is completely different from the way you reach people in the North. I was born in Bauchi State, Northeast Nigeria, raised in Zaria, Northwest Nigeria. My parents had the opportunity of working, in the far north. I'm currently speaking to you from Jos, North Central Nigeria. So, these are terrains that I'm familiar with. I'm originally from Southwest Nigeria. So, and I know, that the way you reach people, in this region is different from the way you reach people in that region. And we'll get there shortly. We're still trying to look at the connection. Okay, how may we sustain and strengthen ongoing labors? Now, something that's been commonly, a term that has been commonly used in mission is what we call reversed mission. I'm not very comfortable with that tag, but I mean, we are not into missions, deep missions, academics and things like that. Now, the idea of this reverse mission is some places have been reached before, but now, due to some development, we now have the need to reach them again. So that's the idea of reverse mission. For example, we're talking of taking the gospel back to Europe, to the West. And so that's reverse mission. So what happened? Why is it that places where great men of God, where revival happened, you're talking of the likes of John Wesley, George Whitefield, Evans Robert, all of those places. We talk of the William Seymour revival in Azusa. What happened? How did it happen that those moves stopped? What can we learn? So that the places we are also reaching today, laboring today, in the next 100 years, we will not be talking of sending missionaries back to those places. What do we need to do differently? So these are things that research helps us to know. And then in our mobilizing, we can now begin to put those information into use. And what are the best engagement practices? It bothers me when I see missionaries serve in a place for 10, 15 years and there are no fruits. Personally, I don't think that is something that pleases the Lord. I mean, at times we try to comfort ourselves saying, it is when it pleases God. I mean, the Lord is reasonable. And more often than not, I think it is us that have failed to put to use the intelligence God has given to us. Probably there is a way God wants us to reach the people. Now, I usually like using Jesus's missionary engagement, even from the book of John. In John chapter 1, if you look at the way he reached out to Nathanael, how did he do that? Especially if you're getting towards the latter part of John chapter 1, then you begin to see that he saw Nathanael and said, "Oh, Nathanael, I saw you when you were far off." I said, "Oh, how did you see me?" And all of that. He said, "I saw you when you were still sitting." And Nathanael was wowed. He said, "Oh, really? Indeed." Remember that before that time, Nathanael and Philip already had a conversation where Nathanael said, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" That place. So Jesus said something, and that caught Nathanael's attention. In John chapter 2, it was the miraculous at the wedding in Cana of Galilee. In John chapter 3, it was encountering Nicodemus. He came Nicodemously, like we used to say, and he was trying to praise Jesus and all of that. Jesus just threw a question to him: except a man be born again. Now, in John chapter 4, the approach was different. It was a woman, by the well in Samaria, and Jesus didn't start with the question of, are you born again? Or he didn't need to do a miracle. He just started by engaging the woman, or give me water. I mean, something very, very unthinkable, something outside, and all of that. In John chapter 5, he continued with the miraculous. In John chapter 6, he started engaging the disciples. Then he faced the crowd. So many people went back. The approach just kept changing. Best engagement practices, and on and on and on like that. Now, we also get to know, so if we need to have a church planting movement, which I believe we must have discussed at some point, or maybe we'll still discuss, if some of our earlier facilitators have not touched on that, how many church planting movement initiatives needs to happen before we can have breakthrough among unreached and unengaged people? These are also terminologies that we probably need to get familiar with. Let me see if I can just digress a little bit. Now, when we say a people group is unreached, what do we mean? When we say a people group is unreached, it simply means that within that people group, let's say the Hausas, let's say the Fulanis, or the Maninkes, or whatever they are, they don't have the inherent capacity within themselves to evangelize themselves. Now, if you have a people group, let's say people group X, and if you among themselves, they don't have the sufficient number of believers. I'm trying to just simplify it to be able to reach themselves. I mean, these are just academic things. It may not be outrightly like that, because I mean, God can just raise someone among a people group and use that person, to reach. But to be able to guide us, to be able to provide some sense of guide for us as we engage people. So we have some of these delineations. Now, to go by the way of statistics, we say when a people group have less than 2% of the indigenous people now as evangelical Christians, or less than 5% as Christians, they are considered as unreached. Now, the question you want to ask me is, what is evangelical Christians? What are Christians? Let me find a simple way to say this, because I believe we might be having starters in mission and things like that. Now, by evangelical, we believe people, evangelical Christians will mean people who believe in the absolute word of God. Is deeper than that. I don't want to make anything so difficult, And then we have general Christians, I mean, with due respect to all categories of Christians, the white garment, the whatever, the candle burning, the whatever you name it. So if you have less than 5% of general Christians and less than 2% of evangelical Christians among the population of a people group, that people group is regarded as unreached. I believe that's clear. Now, when you say unengaged, that is a more critical situation. Unengaged means that there is no effort. These people are unreached with the definition I earlier gave, but then there is no effort. There is no missionary presence. There is no church presence. There is no adoption for prayers. There is nothing happening among this people group. So that's what we mean by unengaged people. Interestingly, Nigeria used to have unengaged people, and I think somewhere in my slide I will get to that. So what we're still trying to establish is the relevance of research to mobilization and missions in general. Let me run because of time. So again, tracing the connection, what are the factors challenging frontier labors? How can we encounter this? Missions is always having challenges here and there, but how can we how can we solve these challenges? Why are churches thriving in some locations? Why are they not thriving in others? These are questions that research helps us to solve. What are the factors responsible for missionary mobilization, field successes, attrition, and all of that? These are things that research helps us to resolve. Okay, now let's go into the scriptures. The word research or missions research may not be found in the Bible, as you probably know, but the principles are widely used and strongly prescribed. Let me just jump around it. In the Old Testament, in fact, before we talk about Exodus 13 and verse 17, where Israel was being led out of Egypt, if you remember, when the Lord called Moses, he said, "Oh, I've seen the burning bush." Now, Exodus 3, say, "I've seen the plight of my people." Now, that's God working with information. God came to Moses with information. So I hope that makes some sense to us. God didn't just come to him in a blank vision. He came with information. Another word you may want to substitute for missions research is mission information. Now, let's go back to Exodus 13. In Exodus 13, Israel was to go out of Egypt. And the Lord said, "Oh, if I lead them by the way of the desert, they might see war and they would, they are inexperienced. So they might run away or something like that." So he decided to take them through the Red Sea. That is information. That is strategizing. That is God knowing the capacity, the experience of Israel, and say, okay, instead of they are going to possess the land, okay, instead of taking route B, let me take them through route D. Okay, I won't dwell so much on this because I'm really running out of time. Now, I mean, this classical example, you don't want to doubt it. Numbers 13, Moses chose, 12 spies who went to explore the land. Now, the question is, the Lord had promised them that he was taking them to a land. What is the need for sending out spies again? But those are just examples to let us know that having information about the people we need to engage is very vital. It is wisdom, and when the people came back, some people gave some bad reports. We'll get to that also. But I mean, let's stay with Joshua and Claire. So no, the way we see these people, we are well able to go in. What God is saying to us, we are well able to achieve it and all of that. I don't know if you have been able to look at this. In Joshua 11, there is a report. There is a research report presented in Joshua 11. And I mean, it's interesting to see that we don't have the space to read all of that. But if you read Joshua 11 to the end, what you probably see there is, and Joshua, finished all the tasks God gave to him. He took all the land, blah, blah, blah. Then there is chapter 12 in between. Then you jump to chapter 13. In chapter 13, it was as if God was waiting for Joshua. It started by saying, now Joshua was full of years and all of that. And the Lord said to him, Joshua, you are full of years, and there are still many lands to conquer. Now, if the Lord had stopped at that, you could have just said, okay, maybe God was just making a general statement. But then the Lord now started listing out from so to so, from so to so, from so to so. Say, oh, so God was keeping a record. Wow. I don't know if you've noticed that before. Now, if you go back to Joshua 11, whoever wrote that chapter, if we had stopped at Joshua 11, we would have assumed Joshua finished the work. But God came with his own list. And Joshua 13 makes me to shiver. Because it comes to me like God has a list and he has an expectation. Now, you wouldn't know the implication of that until you go to Hebrews. Hebrews now said, if Joshua had given them rest, there wouldn't have been a need. Wow. So the issue we thought ended in Joshua. Oh, there is a further reference in Hebrews. Okay, now Nehemiah, we don't have the space. I'm sorry to cook all of this. You remember how Brother Anani came to the palace, met with Nehemiah, gave him information, and Nehemiah worked with that information. And that's what he used in rebuilding the city wall. And we're familiar with that story. Men of Issachar, 1 Chronicles 12:32, Bible says, describes them very succinctly but powerfully. Said, these are people who know what Israel ought to do part time. One of my prayers in missions research is that God will raise for us men with the spirit of the Issacharites. People who can discern, people who have this understanding of what we need to do. Okay. If we have some time, I would have probably want to ask us, to add more. Yes, in the New Testament, Jesus and the harvest, you remember, Jesus said, oh, the fields are white for harvest. The fields, the harvest is vast, but the laborers are few. That's a mission information. Jesus identifies that the harvest is overripe, but there is a problem. The laborers are few. That's an information for mobilizers. And then I say, okay, what we need to do, because if you look at that Jesus' statement, okay, the field is vast for, okay, let's start to go. He said, no. The issue is not even the harvest now. The issue is to pray for God to send laborers. Jesus was careful in his usage. He was able to present to us the solution. He said, laborers. Okay, all right. Now, the early church, if you look at the account from Acts chapter 1 to chapter 4 and even beyond, they work with information. Now, after each maybe preaching and tells, 3,000 were added, 5,000 were added. Okay, the church, we were together, everybody was selling. Those are information. Now, in Paul's ministry in Acts 17, Paul was in Athens. He was waiting for his colleagues, and he just observed. He saw an inscription to an unknown God. And that became the basis of engaging those people. You remember I said, to this God that you don't know, that's the person I've come to tell you about. He worked with an information and he got a result. All right. Even from history, by the grace of God, like I was introduced, I serve with Nigeria Evangelical Missions Association. That's the umbrella for missions in Nigeria. NEMA was formed in 1982. And what's part of the things that led to this formation was like, oh, let's come together. We have so many unreached people groups in Nigeria. How can we respond to this? So some mission agencies that you're familiar with came together and said, oh, the first thing we need to do is to do a research. So beginning from when NEMA was founded 41 years ago, research was at the heart of it. In fact, in 1983, a year after NEMA was established, a global consultation held where they were now discussing, oh, okay, so what do we do about these unreached people? People came together. We have a copy of that book. I don't have it close, but I probably would have shown you. The title is The Final Harvest. The Final Harvest. It is a piece you want to go through. So over the years we kept working with this. As at that time, 72 unreached and unengaged people groups were discovered in Nigeria. And interestingly, many of these people groups discovered in 1983, when we did a review in 2021, I think over 64% of them are no longer unreached. Now, the reason why they were engaged effectively was because an information was provided about them. I was shocked to see people groups like Igala in North Central Nigeria, Idoma, North Central Nigeria, Agetu, all of those people groups, Ebira, Kene and Kogi State, they were all part of people groups that were classified as unreached. Then people ran with this information, began to intentionally engage, and we're talking now, from these people groups, we now have so many mission leaders. We now have so many missionaries. That's how it works. Now, imagine that there was no careful study. There was nobody who was intentionally finding out where are the needs. Maybe we'll still be talking about these people groups as being unreached. Now, in 2017, we were working on a list to discover. I told you earlier on that Nigeria used to have unengaged people. What that means is that there are people groups that are unreached and nobody has made intentional commitment to reach them. I remember when we were carrying out this research somewhere in the far northeast of Nigeria, we got to that place with our team and we're trying to find out, about the people group, what do they believe, what do they worship, and all of those things. And we're talking about Jesus. I'm talking of 2016, 2017. I'm not talking of 1784, 2017. And among these people group, they said, oh, we've never heard about Jesus. In fact, the person who was talking to us said, oh, Jesus, no. We were trying to describe, oh, he's a miracle worker, he heals. Maybe the way we were also presenting it also, he does one and this. I said, no, that man has never come to our village. So they took us to the, to the village chief. I said, these people are talking about a very wonderful man. Chief, probably you've heard about. The chief said, no, none of his grandfathers told him about that. That man has never visited their village. Jesus in 2017, unknown among a part. We could have all assumed that, people have heard and things like that. So at the end of that exercise, we came up with 7 unengaged people groups. You won't believe it. People who have never had any encounter with the gospel. I'm talking about just 6 years, 6 years ago, I think, and it was shocking. So by February 2018, I'm happy to hear that Dr. Chinedu has also shared in the academy. He was here in Jos, where all of us said, no, this is an insult to, this is embarrassing to our knowing. How can we have, we're talking about over 100 million Christians in Nigeria. We're talking about over 55 billion evangelicals, and we're talking about some people group who are still unengaged. No, this shouldn't happen. And we began to apportion, mission agency this, mission agency that. I'm sure if mission enablers had been formed by then, maybe we would have thrown Pastor Posh to one of the unengaged people. I trust his heart. I'm sure that's something he will be happy to join people. So it was research that gave us this info. Okay, so even how did we come about people groups information? These were commitment to research. You'll be talking about the likes of Ralph Winter, who gave us an understanding of, okay, let's have people groups, let's talk about unreached people groups. This will help our engagement and all of that. Many of us have had about 1040 window. Probably you don't know that that's also an effort of research that has now helped mobilization. A senior uncle in missions, Louis Bush, in his reflection and studies, just discovered that there is a rectangular belt, and for those of you who are good with geography, latitude 40 degrees north and 40 degrees north of the equator, and that belt is the world most needy portion. Prior the time Louis Bush called our attention to this, he never jumped at anyone. And when he brought that out, it was as if everybody's eyes became open. So, really? This belt is so strategic. Until today, we're still talking of 1040 window. So it's research, mission information that gave us this intelligence. Okay, next to it, you have the 414 window. Those of you who are working among teens and children, this is my home block. I believe that it's better we prepare the children than to repair the adult, and so we're targeting children from age 4 to 14. I think a research says that 94% of people who came to know the Lord did so between ages 4 and 14. So if we miss people within this gap, it will probably be twice difficult to get them. So it is missions research that gave us all of this intelligence. So what's the verdict? Like I said, we're just doing an overview. I believe God will give us some more time in the future where we can now begin to go into the nitty-gritty of research. How do we go about it? But for this session, we're just looking at the connection between research and how it helps our mobilization. So research is the bedrock on which mission mobilization can be effectively laid. You see, if we do missions research effectively, then we can achieve mobilization desirably. In our own office, the way we talk about it is, okay, we joke about it among ourselves. Okay, research people, you are the bush people. So go and gather the information. Media will put it into, we're in the media age, then mobilization run with it. So we've come to learn that. And that's the beautiful component that we have, the composite that we have in mission. So we have the research portion that helps us with information. Where do we need to have things happen? I was just telling you about the states in the Northeast the other time, where you have 17 local governments, and 10 out of these 17 local governments don't have a church planting presence. When we discovered that in 2019, 2020, we began to mobilize mission agencies. That effort yielded some good response, but we are not there yet. We have a brother now who is the only missionary covering 4 local governments. And those of you who are not familiar with northern Nigeria and who are Nigerians, you need to know that in northern Nigeria, there is a local government in Bauchi State, that is bigger than all the southeast states combined together. One local government, that is bigger than 5 states, as per land mass. So you can imagine one laborer working in 4 local governments. You can imagine how vast that could be. Okay, so Roy Wingard, again, you remember him, he gave us a good definition of research, says when men of faith present data about the harvest, it can help the body of Christ, church leaders, evangelists, church planters, lay people to get a picture of what the Lord is doing. And I mean, this is another thing that we interest mobilization. You know, when we mobilize people, it's not just one-sided. We've made that mistakes in time past. Thank God for the new crops of mobilizers that God is raising for us. Because more often than not, we think that it is how terrible we paint the harvest, it's how terrible we paint our missionaries are looking and things like that. But then another side of it is through mission information. Light just went off, but I think we should be fine. Okay, so when we paint good information about the harvest, you know, it can help people catch a sense of what God is doing. It brings encouragement to their spirit. You know, people can be, oh, God is doing this. Oh, the Fulanis are coming to cry. Oh, there is a church planting movement happening among the Hausas. Oh, among the Tuaregs. I want to plug it into that. I'm excited about this and all of that. Okay. So this can challenge people, the church, to set goals, to make plans for completing the Great Commission in their native land or elsewhere. You know, so what we want to achieve is to see that the church, and whatever the definition of the church is now, you know, come actively into this effort, into this initiative. The reverse can be devastating. It says, when the same data, however, is presented by people who lack faith, and that's the part I was trying to mention earlier on, it can cause the church to shrink back from this seemingly impossible task. I've seen where people have shared, I mean, this is a practical experience that I've had, since where somebody was sharing about missions and it was making it look impossible. It was talking about the difficulties, and somebody said, oh, so if this thing is this hard, must you do it in the first place? So that's not what we are hoping to achieve. Okay. So Wingard closes by saying, men and women who gather and present accurate data with bold faith and indomitable courage unleash the real power of information. I like that. Men and women who gather, and that's something we hope that we can be convinced about and come along in this journey. Men and women who gather and present accurate data with bold faith. I mean, just think of Joshua and Caleb. Think of what they say. Oh, we went through the land. Oh, we saw it. Oh, this was good. I mean, you know, the remaining 10 people that went with them, one of the issues I have with those guys is that they say, oh, the land consumed the inhabitants. So when they went, why is it that the land didn't consume them? You know, I mean, that's another discussion entirely. So with both faith and indomitable courage, they unleash the real power of this information. That's what we are hoping to achieve. Let me try and conclude. I think I have like 10 minutes more. So missions research is God's intelligence system for finishing the task. You know, missions is not a mediocrity task. No. It's not something for those who don't know what to do with their lives. I mean, one of the reasons why, of course, I've always loved academics, but then one of the reasons why I just felt like, I mean, pursuing a PhD and things like that, I'm doing some postdoc studies, is also to encourage others that this task is not for people who don't know, I mean, who don't know the next thing to do with their lives. And I'm excited with the calibers of people that God is calling into these tasks. People like our leader, Pastor Niyi, all our friends on the call. You know, it's encouraging for me when I see the crops of people that God is raising in this time. I mean, I know, I can remember a number of things that was said to me. Leaving Lagos as a journalist, doing fine and things like that. Why do you want to go and put your life into, you know, because that's the impression people had. So And when I came into missions, I was just looking for that portion. I was like, oh, is it training? Is it? Of course, I've been involved in training, as you probably heard when I was being introduced. But I felt there is this part, this intelligence gathering, this information gathering, this strategy part that it seems not much persons are interested in. And then how can we help our frontiers mobilizers? How can we resource them so that when they speak with facts, they speak with data? When you go to a congregation, you share with friends, you have online and you are presenting data, you are presenting fact. It has proven to effectively mobilize people than just talking generally. Okay. And of course, I say here, this is my own definition of mission mobilization anyway. I say mission mobilization is selling an unusual product to an unwilling buyer. Selling an unusual product to an unwilling buyer. Most times we say, oh, the church is not interested, our pastors are not interested, and all of those stuff. But imagine that we approach this with spirit-inspired information, spirit-inspired data. I'm sure there will be a difference. I'm sure you agree with that. Okay. Experience and history has also proven that desired responses are better catalyzed when mobilization is done with verifiable data. We talked about more persons have been effectively mobilized through the 1040 window discovery. More persons have been effectively mobilized. I belong to the window 414 network, we work globally, and when we share data and things like that, it has effectively mobilized people to begin to consider engaging teens and children among the unreached as well as among the reached. We say that children are the Great Commission, in the Great Commission, things like that has really helped. Okay. And of course, for many of us that are desiring to be mission mobilizers, effective mobilizers, I strongly encourage that you work closely with researchers. That's why I'm on this call. Mission enablers, Pastor Niyi, we've been working so closely together. We are happy to be at the background. We're happy to see them use information that we generate with other friends, and we're happy to see them run with it. What is important is for the Lord this work to be done. So if you don't see some of us, that's just very fine. That's what we are called to do. And we are happy to have many more persons considering this strategic and crucial part of responding to the Great Commission. Okay, so research must be intelligently done and proficiently utilized by the church and mission mobilizers in particular. And that's why you see earlier on that this task is not for mediocres. It's not just you enter a place and by the time God gives us another opportunity and we begin to look at the principles of missions research and all of that, maybe this can become clearer. So let me stop here. I just want to be as faithful as possible to the time.
Somebody wants to know. You've been talking about teenagers. Is it teenagers, children and teenagers mobilization? Would you want to shed more light on that? And if we have more information regarding data that has to do with that. All right, sir.
Okay, thank you, Ma. Question is quite general. Let me see how God helps me to respond. If I hear you well, you said, Sister, would you kindly come again with that?
Okay. Okay, so the person wants to know how they can have access to data that has to do with mission mobilization for children and teenagers.
Okay, maybe to make it simple, you probably want to check out window 414. Just type that on your Google search. I think that will be very helpful. Window 4/14. I'm sure it's going to pop up for you. But then I'm happy that this question came because we need to be very intentional about reaching children. You see, if we start from that, I mean, it may surprise you that while serving on the mission field, I focus more on children. In fact, many of the places where I served that you heard mentioned, okay, let me use the term we are familiar with. The ministry started with children. And you'll be surprised that it was through children that we achieved many church planting efforts. You know, I will gather them. Thankfully, I'm also skilled in musical instruments. I travel to my guitar, bass guitar. I mean, it's very easy to gather children. I will just sit down, start playing, and they will start coming. And I started teaching them songs and things like that. And it was these children that were taking me to their parents. In fact, when I was in a field on the creek in Bayelsa State, it was a teenager that housed me. It was 15 years old. Then he housed me. That boy that I'm talking about today is now a missionary among his own people. He's an ordained reverend. I'm not even ordained. If Pastor Nii was at the meeting, the mission conference that happened in Lagos, I think last week or upper week, they had some portions in Lekki, but that he was there. And I mean, I was so excited. He sent me pictures. He told me how you finally succeeded in converting me to a missionary. I've had one of them that was, she came to, I was also doing some lessons, what do you call it now? Yeah, lessons, home lessons and things like that. In the village there on the creek, she came pregnant. She was, I think she was 14 or 15, young lady. And that was the encounter we had. It was like also a culture shock for me. I only used to hear it. I've not seen where a teenager, and she was proud about it. She was just going about, and God helped us with her. I think 2016 or 2017 thereabout, I was to catch a flight from Lagos, and I saw this lady dressed as one of the workers for one of the years. I couldn't even recognize her. So many things are happening with children and teenagers. And it may also interest you that God is also raising missionaries from among teenagers and children. I mean, I don't have the space to go into all of that. But please check out Window 414. If you are a missionary to children and teens, I mean, please reach out to our leaders at Mission Enablers. We'll be able to connect from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for that. The future is bright, that we know, because we have men like you, women everywhere, whom God is raising at such a time as this to really open our eyes to see in terms of data and all of that. Okay, so someone says, thank you, sir, for insightful and body-stirring conversations. Please, what websites and platforms can we get more data on UPGs, on Rich People Group, and other data? Also, what other classes can we take on missions research? I love that.
Fantastic. Good question. You're asking something around, I mean, yes. We can get information. I mean, the popular ones are Joshua Project. It may interest you, those of you that are familiar with Joshua Project, all of those vast work that you see on Joshua Project is only done by three persons. I mean, by the grace of God, I happen to be the African rep. And so we gather all of these things together. So you can see the need for more hands. So Joshua Project is one. You can also check finishthetask.org. You also get some good information there. International Mission Board of the Southern Baptist, they also have some good rich info. Just 2 weeks ago, we had our global conference. It was a virtual conference. I think Pastor Nii signed up for that. We have an association we call Mission Information Workers Forum, and that's where we have the global body that we churn out this research work and things like that. You can also check Operation World. Those are you can just Google Operation World. Jason Mandrick is a good friend and a brother. So and also a young person, like, of course, so you can check out this. Then on the, I think the question also has a B part that says, what other trainings or something like that?
Yes, sir. It says, what other classes can we take on missions research?
Yes, I mean, like the one we're having now is a very strategic initiative. I must confess that this kind of deliberate effort to let people know about what is going on missions research is not very common. But then we also have a training institute in Jos where missions research is part of the curriculum. Probably we now need to begin to think of making this public. Maybe we want to think of holding some of these sessions. We don't have something like that. That's the truth for the now. Yes, but now that a question is coming around this, we probably want to consider that, and maybe we have some other makeup sessions that can also help enhance capacity in this direction.
Awesome, amazing. I love the fact that out of this training is the thought of doing this, So, I mean, it's obvious that this is fruitful. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, doctor. Somebody says in the chat room, and I would really love to read that out. It's not a question, but I mean, it's something that really stands out for me. The person says, laborers are few. Jesus help us. I agree with you, sir Omar. Laborers are few, actually. So, I mean, a lot of people can talk about missions, but maybe not from the stance that doctor actually speaks from. He has access to so much information in terms of statistics and all of that, but maybe not too many people are paying attention to this. So maybe you're on the call and God is saying something to your heart, there's a stirring in your heart, or maybe you've gone to take trainings and data and analyses and all of that. Please, this work is waiting for you. Get into this harvest and let the Lord be pleased. Glory to God. We'll take 3 more questions, sir. The next question is, we have data that have been pushed around in the last 10 years about missions. Are there ways to update this data to encourage those working that there is progress? I can take that again if you want me to.
No, I think I get this, Sister Tokwe.
Right,
thank you. I like that question. Absolutely. One of my personal commitment is updating missions data and research. Now, if you get on Joshua Project, you'll probably see more unreached people groups for Nigeria than what you will find on NEMA website. NEMA's website is another place, not the National Emergency, Nigeria Evangelical Mission Association. Okay, so you also get some resource there. Now, I just want to connect that question, this response to that question. If you get on Joshua Project, you see, more unreached people groups, and we've been working hard with our brothers in the West to harmonize that. Because like Sister Tokwe said, we don't do research so that we can overwhelm people. It's not how bad the situation is that we effectively mobilize people. We also have a responsibility, a kingdom responsibility, to share the good news of what God is doing. So yes, there is an intentional commitment to see that we update research report. We verify information, we share what is happening from time to time. So that commitment is there.
Glory to God. Thank you so very much for that answer, sir. I think I'll just link this next question to the previous one. What are some of the challenges that are peculiar to mission research? So maybe somebody's catching the burden, and like you said, we need to count the costs. We need to understand the terrain that we are getting into. So maybe this answer could help that one person, 2, 3 people who are on the call tonight, sir.
Yeah, of course, there are challenges, but then if you look at, maybe I should start this way to encourage you and not be scared of the challenges. If you look at the gains from missions research, you probably want to think less of the challenges. If you see the huge contribution, that missions research gives. I mean, this year we'll be having a big conference, our biennial conference, and we'll be talking on urban missions, and it's a product of research. We're beginning to discover that we are chasing the unreached people groups in rural areas, whereas they are trooping in their thousands, in their hundreds into urban areas. So but then maybe as a way of just giving a few challenges, especially when you're going among unreached people group for research, there could be the seemingly closeness for people to give you information because they don't know you, as it were. So you probably initially want to be discouraged when you're asking questions and they are suspicious, which is okay. I mean, it's more like a natural thing. Then some terrains also. I mean, we've been in so many difficult, risky situations, but the job must be done. I mean, that's the balance. That's what we said. We must get this info. We need this information. We need this. We need to get to this terrain, especially when we're also, because research is not just standing alone. It leads to strategy. So we also look at strategy mapping. So, and you can't do that on the system. You can't do that on Google or on Wikipedia. You have to be on ground, do assessment and things like that. So it could get a bit tough to get by those things, but not impossible.
Thank you so very much for that, sir. Thank you for that response. I'll take the final question because of our time. The final question for tonight, I don't know, maybe I can take one more, but let's see how this goes. What is the pathway for an intending mission researcher? Someone who feels called to be involved in mission research. What's the pathway?
I think it's first a passion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a passion because I think I came into research. I don't want to use the word by accident, but something a bit close to that. We're planning for a congress and we needed information. At least we just needed some pieces of information to guide, and we didn't have it. We were contacting some people, they didn't seem to have it. I said, okay, there must be a way around this. Then I got on the road and got this person, got that person, got this person. I said, oh, I mean, this thing that nobody is doing, then let me just keep myself into it. And before you knew it, boom, God was opening doors for us with other friends. So I think it's passion. I also think it also, I mean, the Lord deserves the best. So it is something that we also need to increase our capacity intellectual wise, because you'll be writing reports, you'll be doing analysis. Those of you who have background in statistics, interestingly, you saw, my background is in dramatic theory and criticism. I mean, I don't like mathematics and all of those things, but I had to go and learn. I had to go and learn how to, do all this pie chart, bar chart, all of those things, because it's the passion. So it is something around that. But I tell you, it's something you will love doing.
Wow. Thank you so very much, sir. Thank you. Something
before the next question, to say research doesn't mean that you have to enter the bush or something before you can get something done. I was in the southwest Nigeria city of Ibadan some years back. I'm just using that as some of you might not know that, especially some of our friends outside the country. I was in a place called Gate, Agodi Gate. And from Gate, you could do a stretch. I'm mentioning that because of some of us that are very familiar with the city, down to, is it Challenge or New Garage? One of the two. And I discovered that if you know that stretch, that you have a number of our cousin brothers and sisters, the Ishmaelites, on that stretch. You can't miss. You will just think that probably you are in a northern city, or and it is an Islamic stronghold. Then I was just taking notes, writing things down, and later on I go back to some of our leaders in the city. I said, this is what I discovered, and sharing those things. So what that means is that you can be a walking researcher. You know,
Right.
around your area, you're looking, you know, who are these people? Some of us in cities, who are these settlers? Who are these foreigners that you can begin to take note, you can begin to strategize and things like so. I mean, just to make that passing comment. Yes.
Wow, thank you so much for that, sir. Where are the people that doctor is actually referring to? I think I can cite some people in the spirit, and I cite myself too. You know, we can be researchers. We don't necessarily have to get out of our terrain. You know, so yeah, thank you so much for that, sir. Thank you. I'll take the next question. Someone says data is not readily available in Nigeria. Where do we get all the curated data for Nigeria and Africa? I think you answered that a while ago, but then maybe there's something else you want to add to that.
No, absolutely. That's something we are not given to in this part of the world. You know, we don't really care. You know, I mean, and well, a little away from what we're discussing. I mean, I've always told people that don't be surprised. Nigeria is not as much as people think. I mean, 200 and something million. I mean, Abba, where did you get that from? But then, this is now the reason. I mean, when we say the church is the solution, you know, to the worst problem, that statement is holistic. And it may interest you to know that there was a time that it was the research work from the missions community that the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics was using. Yes, I mean, my mentor in this, Uncle Igbade from Capro, the work they did, they had to look for them and say, oh, please, we need this. So that's just telling us that we have a lot of things to be done. There are so many people groups that it was missions that discovered them. Government didn't have those records. It was missions that discovered, oh, these people are here, oh, these people are here, you know. There are so many people groups that, I mean, for the sake that we live, just to respect the identity of those people, it was missions effort that brought those people to the limelight. Oh, there are some people here, oh, there are some people here. So absolutely, and this again gives us the impetus to be able to commit to this strategic labor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you. There's one more question that I would like to read out, and the question is: any recommended approach in mission mobilization in Southwest United Kingdom that brought the gospel to us that do not believe in the gospel again, sir?
Very good question. Yeah, you know, the other time I was talking about reversed mission, which I say, well, I don't know Pastor Nee's reaction to that, but I'm not very comfortable with that name because I believe mission is missions. You don't, but yes, there is deliberate initiative to take back the gospel to the people that once delivered it to us. There are a number of initiatives, and if you're in that part of the country, we are happy to, you know, connect you with our African brothers. There is a strong initiative. There is a strong presence in the UK and even in the West, mobilizing African brothers and sisters who have conviction about it and taking the gospel back, you know, to our brothers and sisters, indigenous brothers and sisters from that part of the country. And again, it's also research that is helping us achieve this. I mean, from what we have, there was a time a brother was sharing with us, a Nigerian, but the Lord has helped him to do a lot of work. He was actually the head of London City Mission. That's a Nigerian. You can Google London City Mission, you know, and they've been able to do fantastic work, you know, in that country and beyond. So the answer to that is, oh yes, there are efforts going on that.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for that response.